For 20,000 years, the galaxy had been quiet about one name: humanity. Their stories were whispered only in shadows, told like myths to scare children or stir old soldiers who drank too much. Most species believed humans were long gone, wiped out in the first great purges of the early empires. Records had been erased, archives corrupted, histories rewritten. The galaxy moved on. But silence does not always mean death. Sometimes, silence means waiting. Commander Darnik Val never cared much about history. He was a Dominion officer, sworn to serve the Empire, but he had already fallen from favor. Too many mistakes in the last campaign, too many questions about his loyalty. So, they gave him a punishment post, patrol duty in the outer sectors. It was the kind of job given to men the Dominion wanted forgotten. His ship, the Talrith, was small for a Dominion warship. Thin crew, weak weapons, old hull plating. It was meant for scouting, not fighting. Its job was to roam through dead space, to make sure nothing stirred among the ruins. Darnik knew what it meant. A slow death of duty, far from glory, far from command. But space has a way of surprising even those who think they've seen everything. The Talrith drifted past a broken moon. The scanners gave nothing, no power readings, no signs of life, just dust, rock, and the memory of a forgotten battle. Darnik leaned back in his command chair, half bored, half angry at his fate. Another empty run, he muttered. His voice carried the tired weight of a man who had lost his future, his first officer. A thin man with pale scales across his skin gave only a shrug. Nothing ever stirs out here, Commander. Dead space stays dead. Darnik almost believed it. Almost. Then, the alarms screamed. Every light on the bridge turned red. Sirens howled. The crew jerked upright in panic. The cumboard lit up with a storm of signals. Old, broken, fragmented. Nothing like Dominion code. Nothing like any modern system. "What is that?" Darnik barked, pushing himself upright. His heart hammered in his chest. The first officer's hands shook over the console. His eyes widened. "Sir, this structure is pre-war. At least 20,000 years old." Static hissed through the speakers, broken by a sound like a heart beats low, steady, heavy. The crew froze. Some whispered prayers, others simply stared. The first officer pointed toward the viewport. His voice cracked. "It's coming from there." Out in the black, space seemed to fold on itself. For a moment, it was just emptiness, a void without stars. Then, something moved, a distortion like rippling water in the night. The crew held their breath. Slowly, agonizingly slow, a shadow emerged. It was massive, stretching across the viewport until it blotted out the stars. At first, it looked like an asteroid, a floating piece of wreckage. But as the distortion cleared, shapes became visible. Metal, hull plating, gun batteries, towers. It was a ship, but not like any Dominion ship, not like any ship built in the last 1,000 generations. Its design was brutal, angular, sharp-edged, built for war without elegance. The hull was scarred with centuries of damage, blackened by burns, pitted with impacts. Yet even through the scars, its presence was undeniable. Letters flickered faintly across its side, barely visible under layers of debris. Not Dominion script, not alien runes. Old, forgotten Earth lettering .SSV Nemesis. Darnik's throat went dry. He had heard whispers, stories spoken in taverns, rumors traded among the fleet. Ghost stories of ancient human dreadnoughts, hidden away, waiting. The sleeper fleet. But no one ever believed them. They were myths, nothing more. Until now, a sudden spike ripped through the scanners. The Talrith shuddered, as if something enormous had awakened. "Power surge!" the officer shouted. It's coming from the ship." On the screen, the Nemesis lit up. Its once dead engines glowed pale blue, lights spilling across the hull. One by one, weapon ports cracked open, massive barrels swiveling into position. The ship groaned, like a beast stirring after long hibernation. The bridge of the Talrith filled with panicked voices. "Is it alive? What powers it, sir?" It should be impossible. Fusion reactors can't survive 20 millennia. Hands gripped the arms of his chair. He forced his voice steady. Open a channel. Hail them. The comms officer scrambled, broadcasting Dominion greetings, emergency warnings, surrender protocols, anything that might provoke a reply, but the Nemesis ignored them. Its systems came online one after another, as though the galaxy around it did not exist. And then the voice came. It was male, cold, human. All non-human vessels vacate this sector. You are trespassing. Last warning. Silence followed. No one on the Talrith moved. The crew stared at one another, pale with fear. The officers who moments ago laughed at dead space now trembled. Darnik stood. His instincts screamed at him to run, to turn the ship and flee. But he was Dominion. He was a commander. He could not show fear in front of his crew. Bring weapons. Online, he ordered. His voice wavered, but the words still came. The order was pointless, and everyone knew it. The Talrith was a scout ship, lightly armed, thinly shielded. Against a dreadnought like this, human or not, it wouldn't last seconds. Still, pride forced him to try. Before the crew could act, the Nemesis moved. Its main cannon charged with terrifying speed. The glow filled the blackness, a storm of energy gathering in its barrel. The Talrith braced for death, but the shot wasn't aimed at them. The cannon fired. Single, blinding beam ripped across space, struck a derelict station. Floating nearby, a ruin from some forgotten war. The station was 2 kilometers wide, built of thick alloys. In an instant, it was gone, vaporized. Not even fragments remained. The bridge of the Talrith fell silent again. The message was clear. The Nemesis did not bluff, sir. Officer whispered, his voice thin. This changes everything. Darnik could not answer. His mind raced with horror. If one human ship had survived, how many more were out there? How many had slept in silence, waiting for the right moment to return? He had trained to fight pirates, rebels, alien factions. But not this. Not ghosts from a dead species, armed with weapons that defied time itself. Full sensor sweep. Darnik growled, though fear twisted his gut. I want everything weak points. Power signatures, structure, anything we can find. The officer obeyed, his hands trembling. Data poured across the displays, most of it unreadable. The Nemesis did not match Dominion logic. Some systems were absurdly primitive, others centuries ahead. Its shielding was weak, almost non-existent, yet the hull itself defied Dominion scanners. Its alloys were unknown, unbreakable. Sir, the officer whispered again, we can't match it. Not with this ship. Darnik knew. Even without the report, he knew. The Talrith was prey. The Nemesis was a predator from another age. Another burst of static shook the comms. The voice repeated, cold and unyielding. Vacate this sector. Last warning. The crew looked to Darnik. Their faces begged for orders. For courage? But Darnik felt the truth settle heavy in his chest. They were standing at the edge of something far greater than themselves. The galaxy believed humans were extinct. That silence had buried them. But silence was only a mask, and now the mask was gone. Darnik clenched his jaw. He would not flee like a coward, but he would not die pointlessly either. Helm, he said quietly. Pull us back. Maximum safe. Distance. Keep scanners locked on that ship. I want to see everything it does. The helmsman nodded in relief, the Talrith sliding backward through the void. The Nemesis ignored them, drifting forward with growing strength. Its scans swept the stars, its engines humming with new life. Darnik watched, his gut tightening with dread, because if the humans had awakened one ship, they could awaken more, and if more came, the age of Dominion supremacy was over. The age of silence was broken. As the Talrith retreated into the shadows, the Nemesis loomed in the void, alive after 20 millennia. The comms hissed one final time, carrying the human voice across all frequencies. Vacate this sector. Last warning. The words rang like a death sentence. The galaxy would never be the same again. For 20,000 years, the galaxy had forgotten the sound of a human voice. Now, it had returned, echoing cold and sharp across every channel. All non-human vessels, Vacate this sector. You are trespassing. Last warning. On the bridge of the Dominion scout ship Talrith, silence hung heavy. Commander Darnik Val sat frozen in his chair. His crew stared at the screens, too afraid to breathe. The massive shadow in the void, the human dreadnought Nemesis, glowed brighter as its ancient. Systems roared to life. Darnik felt his heart pound. He had seen battles before, but never like this. This was no enemy fleet, no rebellion, no pirate band. This was something worse. It's a ghost of war returned from the grave. The Talrith crept back to safer distance, its scanners fixed on the Nemesis. The Dominion ship was small, weak, almost invisible compared to the Titan before it. And yet the Nemesis did not fire again. It moved with calm certainty, ignoring them. As if the Dominion ship did not matter, Darnik whispered under his breath, "What are you?" Inside the Nemesis, deep within its ancient steel heart, a hiss filled the silence. Cryogenic pods lined the chamber walls, frost covering their surfaces. For millennia, they had stood in silence, protecting their precious cargo. No, steam poured from the seals as systems long dormant came alive. One pod opened. A man stepped out. His breath was ragged, his body thin but strong, his eyes burning with unnatural clarity. His face was pale, his hair streaked with frost, but his presence filled the chamber. Captain Eric Gron. He had been there the day Earth fell. He had been chosen to carry humanity's final weapon into the stars. And now, 20,000 years later, he lived again. The ship's AI, a deep masculine voice, spoke into the chamber. "Captain, systems restored, relay grid detected, Dominion. Forces minimal." Eric touched the wall of the pod, his hand trembling only for a moment before it steadied. His voice was hoarse but firm. "How long?" 20 millennia, Captain." Eric's jaw tightened. His eyes closed for a heartbeat. 20,000 years. His world, his people, his family all dust. Yet the mission remained. Begin full. "Crew activation," he ordered. His voice echoed in the chamber. "Wake them all." The AI obeyed. Lights brightened. Rows of cryopods hissed and cracked open. Men and women stepped out, gaunt and frostbitten, but alive. Soldiers, engineers, tacticians, the last elite of humanity's fleet. Their eyes burned with the same fire as their captain. The sleeper fleet was stirring. On the bridge of the Nemesis, screens flared alive, their ancient designs clashing with eerie new clarity. Crew members staggered into their posts, shaking off centuries of sleep. Fingers flew across controls. Voices reported system after system returning to full power. Tactical systems restored. Reactor output stable. Rail batteries charging. Missile silos armed. The sound of war filled the bridge. Captain Eric Gron stood at the helm, his hands clasped behind his back. He stared at the starfield, his face stone. To him, it had been a single frozen dream since the fall of Earth. To the galaxy, it had been ages. But now, humanity was awake again. He turned to his tactical officer, Brand Holt, a man with a scar running across his jaw. Holt's first words were raspy, but sharp. "Status, Captain?" Eric's reply was cold. "We're alive. That's enough. Prepare the relay activation." Far ahead, a chain of broken stations drifted in the void. The relay grid, a forgotten network of jump relays built in humanity's final war, long abandoned, left to decay. No Dominion ship had ever touched them, for the technology was alien, forbidden, lost. But the Nemesis remembered. Its scanners reached out, pulsing across the ancient ruins. Screens lit with symbols in old Earth code. Systems awoke like slumbering giants, one by one. Energy arced across the grid. On the Talrith, Commander Darnik's crew panicked. "Sir, they're reactivating the relays." "What does it mean?" "They'll have access to hyperspace lanes no one's used in millennia." Darnik's blood turned cold. The relay grid was everywhere. Old, hidden, and spread across forgotten corners of the galaxy. If the humans reactivated it, they could strike anywhere behind defenses into secure sectors. to the very heart of the Dominion. This is war, Darnik, whispered Captain. Eric Ron watched as the relay grid hummed to life. The ship's AI reported calmly. Relay Alpha online. Secondary relays responding. Pathways stabilizing. Eric's lips curled into a thin smile. Good! Proceed with the second phase. Brandholt stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the growing energy web. They'll know, Captain. The Dominion will see this. Let them, Eric said. His voice was steady, hard as iron. Thought we were gone. They thought silence meant death. Now they will learn what silence truly meant. Brand nodded. He had fought beside Eric in the last days of Earth. He knew what these words meant. This was not survival. This was vengeance. But before vengeance, a warning. Eric turned to his communications officer. Broadcast on all channels. Use ancient code. Make sure they understand. The officer nodded and pressed the controls. Across the stars, the voice of humanity carried once more. This is Captain Eric Groan of the Terran warship Nemesis. To the Dominion. To every empire that claimed. Our silence meant extinction. Humanity remembers. Humanity returns. The words repeated again and again, bouncing across the old relay channels. Pirates heard it, rebels heard it, forgotten colonies heard it. And in the Dominion core, panic began to spread. Back on the Talarith, Darnik's crew scrambled to send warnings to Sector Command, but their comms failed. Long-range beacons went dark. Sir, deep band frequencies are jammed. The officer cried. Of course they were. Darnik realized it at once. The humans had come prepared. They had waited 20,000 years. They would not allow the Dominion to spread warnings before the sleeper fleet rose. Darnik slammed a fist against his chair. Damn them. They're ahead of us already. His eyes returned to the screen. The Nemesis grew brighter, stronger, alive. Round it, pods opened. Dozens of humans stepped onto the decks, faces cold, eyes unbroken. Warriors from another age. The Dominion was not ready for this war. In the heart of Dominion space, the Supreme Archon sat on his throne, half bored with reports of taxes and border disputes. Then the chamber shook with alarm. A priority message appeared, full of static. The words that did come through chilled everyone present. Ancient human warship. Designation Nemesis. Active relay. Grid compromised. Cannot engage. Fleeing to report, the message cut. The chamber erupted in shouts. Admirals argued, advisors screamed. The Archon sat still, his face carved in stone. He knew the old stories. He knew the truth no one dared speak aloud. The humans had never been defeated. They had simply disappeared. Now they had returned. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Summon the High War Council. Let's unseal the Black Archives. Every file on human war doctrine. Now it's back aboard the Nemesis. Captain Eric Gron stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the stars. His voice was calm, but inside, centuries of rage burned. Wake the rest of the command crew, he ordered. We've slept long enough. Pods hissed open. More officers, more soldiers, more humans stepped forward. Their breaths hung cold. In the air, their hands steady as they took their places. The relay grid pulsed brighter, spreading across the sector like fire. Pathways opened, connecting forgotten bunkers and hidden warships. The Nemesis's AI reported. Signal acknowledged. Other ships responding. Hammerfall, Vindicator, Revenantal, Awakening. Eric's lips curved into a dark smile. Galaxy forgot about us, he whispered. Now we remind them. And as the relay grid thundered with energy, the Nemesis prepared to jump. The silence of 20 millennia was gone. The first moves of war had begun. The stars bent as the Nemesis hurled itself through the ancient relay. Ghost fleet stirred in the darkness. Humanity had returned. The first scream did not come from a battlefield. It came from a secure council chamber in the heart of the Dominion. A junior clerk, young, was careful, trained to speak only when asked, stared at a live feed that should not exist.
Watched up.
Single rail round from a ship that should be dust vaporize a 2-kilometer station as if it were smoke. His hands shook so hard he could not mute the alarms. The feed cut to static and came back again, showing the same impossible silhouette in the dark. He whispered the word he had been told was a myth: humans. The chamber erupted. Advisors shouted for guards. Generals demanded proof. Priests of the state hissed that the image was forged. But the senior intelligence director said nothing. He only turned up the volume. A man's voice, cold, clipped, and human, filled the room. All non-human vessels. Vacate this sector, you are trespassing. Last warning. 5 seconds of silence followed. Those 5 seconds were the loudest sound the Dominion had heard in centuries. The Supreme Archon did not move at first. He sat on his tall iron chair with hands folded, eyes fixed on the dark shape at the center of the projection. He had seen this ship once before, not in life, but in the sealed images of the Black Archives. He knew its lines, the brutal angles, the way the bow cut space like a blade. Nemesis. Close the doors, the Archon said at last. The bronze doors slid shut. Armed guards posted spears across the seams. The room tightened like a fist. Director. The Archon said without looking away from the projection. Tell them what it means. The intelligence director cleared his throat. His voice was steady, but sweat gathered at his temples. The signal originates from Sector 7 Dead Zone. Authentication matches archived Terran military protocols unbroken since the first purge. The ship's energy signatures, ancient fusion lines, rail capacitors, no drift. Captain Recording presents the name Eric Gron. Impossible, an admiral snapped. 20 millennia, nothing is impossible after that shot, the Archon said softly. The room went still again. Options? He asked. They spoke at once: deploy fleets, seal borders, burn the old relay network, crush rebellions preemptively, purge historian guilds, shut down long-range markets, raise taxes for war coffers. Each voice made the problem bigger, not smaller. Enough, the Archon said. Silence obeyed him. We underestimated a ghost, he said. We will not do so again. Unseal the Black Archives. Bring me every document on Terran war doctrine, irregular assaults, and relay grid theory. I want officers who have read these papers, not just heard the legends. His eyes moved to the tall, scar-lined figure near the far wall. Commander Darnik Val. Darnik stepped forward, stiff in a repaired uniform. A faint bandage still hidden under the collar from the last battle that had not been a battle. He looked older than he had the day before. He looked like a man who had watched a mountain wake. You saw the Nemesis with your own eyes, the Archon said. Describe it, Darnik did not embellish. He spoke simple words, large, angular, old, woke like it never slept. Fusion cores, bright as first day. Weapons, fast. Very fast. A single round erased the station. No rubble, only light. Our scout ship was invisible to it because we were not worth noticing. And its intent? It wants space. It wants silence. It wants us to move. The Archon's mouth thinned. And will we? Darnik looked him in the eye, not willingly. A slow nod. We will form a reconnaissance strike group. Veterans. Only fast cruisers. Silent hulls. Your orders. Find their next step. Do not die for pride. Yes, Supreme One. The order echoed out of the chamber like the first breath before a storm, in bars. Docking bays and market corridors across the core worlds, whispers rose with the speed of rumor and the weight of faith. No official network mentioned the word human, but people had mouths, and mouths had friends. Someone had seen a pirated clip. Someone's cousin had served on a frontier beacon. Someone's grandmother remembered the old songs sung low to lull babies when the Terrans wake the stars. We'll shake. Smugglers laughed first, because smugglers always laughed. Then they stopped laughing when a quiet, coded ping hit their private boards. From unknown Terran protocol to all who hate chains message. Routes opening. Old lanes alive. Payment in safety, fuel, and future. Avoid Dominion convoys. For relay flares. Humanity remembers. Pirate captains looked at each other and did math. Dominion patrols were thick along the profitable roads. Old roads meant profit without patrols. Profit without patrols meant fewer funerals. Old enemies toasted new possibilities. Not all cheers came from criminals. On a dusty moon in an old farm belt, a teacher closed his classroom door, turned off the public audio feed, and played a recording. For 20 children, it was poor quality. It crackled. The words were hard to hear, but the children sat straight, because the voice behind the static was made of iron and grief. Humanity returns. One child raised a hand. What is a humanity? Teacher smiled with wet eyes. A story that can come back. The Talrith did not run far. She was a small ship with small pride, and her commander's pride was bigger than the hull. Darnick kept her at the edge of safe distance, nose pointed at the black shape that had swallowed the stars. He ordered full sensor coverage and ordered his crew to drink water and breathe. Sir, his first officer said softly, we should jump. If the Dominion is deaf now, we must carry the news ourselves. I know, Darnick said. He could not stop looking at the Nemesis. It moved with a patience he had seen only in predators. A wide scan swept from its hull like a slow blink. It was not hunting them. It was studying the map of the sky. Plot it, Darnick said. Where will it go? The nav officer frowned at layers of data that did not want to become sent, sir. Vector aligns with the old relay grid. Of course, Darnick whispered. Double quotes, sir. If it reactivates the grid, then no wall we built in 1,000 years will matter. Darnick rubbed his eyes. Prepare a jump solution, but hold. Want one more sweep? Give me a weakness. Give me anything. They searched. The data mocked them. Shielding, minimal, hull, unreadable. Reactor, impossible. Simple and perfect, no weakness. Only hunger. A new pulse rippled from the Nemesis. Lights flickered across the dead relays. On the sector rim, one after another, they woke like old street lamps in a night city dim, then bright, then steady. The Talrith's deep band receiver rattled. A code sequence older than the Dominion sang through the hull. The first officer swallowed. Sir, they're opening lanes. Enough, Darnick said. His voice was tired and hard.
Ow.
Take us. Out. Best speed. We will be the messenger. The Talrith turned, engines flaring. No beam followed. The Nemesis did not care. The Talrith vanished into jump light, leaving its fear behind to haunt the empty sector. Inside the Nemesis, air moved. Through lungs that were not lungs, pumps sighed. Coolant murmured.
Ass.
Steel bones stretched and flexed. The ship had slept for ages, but had not forgotten how to wake Captain. Eric Grahn stood with hands behind his back and watched stars on a forward screen that had been built by hands long dead. He had been a very different man the last time he stood. Here, younger, angrier. He did not smile then, and he did not smile now. Report, he said. Tactical. All batteries green, said Brandholt, his voice sharper now that the cold had left his bones. Decoy drones loaded. Engineering, fusion output steady, called Chief Maradev, moving with a limp the cryofluid had not fully healed. Reactor 2 hums like a cat. Comes, the Dominion chatter is chaotic, said Signal Officer Rhea Cade, eyes on a web of intercepted messages. Half disbelief, half rage. None of it organized. Good, Eric said. Confusion buys time. Time buys ships. He looked at the relay map. The grid glowed like a spiderweb. Lines ran from hub to hub, out to the rim and back to the deep. Places where human bunkers slept under rock and ice. Some dots already brightened, soft, cautious, waking. He touched the screen. There, and there. Human outposts. Brand asked. Human graves, Eric said, and his voice was a low storm. With doors that open, the AI spoke, calm, patient, never tired. Long-range acknowledgement from SSV Hammerfall and SSV Vindicator. Revival subroutines running. Crew thaw at 42%. Weapons minimal until full power. How long? Eric asked. Hours, the AI said. Not days, and we buy those hours. Brand's grin showed teeth. Targets, Eric pointed again. Don't aim. For pride, aim for blood flow. Cut a depot. Cut a comes spine. Make every Dominion captain doubt his orders. Make every merchant fear his route. Make every civilian ask why the sky is on fire. Brand nodded. Kara Station. Sector 9. Fat, lazy, important. Eric's eyes cooled. Yes, and loud enough to be heard in the core. He turned to Rhea. Before we strike, send a whisper. Quiet old code. Not to the Dominion, to those who hate the Dominion. Rhea's fingers moved, message composed. Content? Rick looked at the dark curve of the dreadnought's bow. Simple truth, he spoke.
Ow.
To all who remember us, and to all who never. Knew we are not here for mercy. We are here for balance. Choose your side before the sky chooses it for you. Rhea sent the whisper into the grid. Somewhere across 1,000 systems, small lights inside, small people turned on. Back in the core, the black archives opened like a wound. Dust rose from seals that had not broken in centuries. Archivists cut strings wrapped by hands that had died before their grandfathers were born. Inside lay paper that did not burn and crystals that still sang. They brought out words the Dominion had taught itself to forget. Close quarters is where humans laugh. Ambush is how humans say hello. Treat does not mean what you think it means. The human says last warning, count yourself lucky. Along with the words came diagrams of ships with iron names. Nemesis, Hammerfall, Vindicator, Revenant. Old dossiers on officers whose medals had rusted to dust. A doctrine summary with a seal that read, when outnumbered, divide. The Supreme Archon read until his eyes ached. Then he called a name he had been saving. Bring me the Black Spear Fleet. Admirals swallowed. Warlords whispered. The Black Spear was not a myth, but it was close. It was a knife kept under the bed. It was veterans with dark records and ships with darker paint. It was a promise you did not break out unless you were ready to lose parts of your soul. They filed into the chamber. Captains whose eyes did not blink fast enough. Crew whose salutes looked like threats. At their head stood Dreadclaw, a spear point. Of a flagship that hid its numbers like a cheater hides his cards, the Archon spoke evenly. Your target is not their pride. Your target is their planning. They will awaken more ships. We'll build routes faster than we can map them. Find. The awakening, find the routes. Cut both, the captain asked. Rules of engagement. Do not look for rules, the Archon said. Look for results. He turned to Darnik Val. You will advise them. Darnik bowed without warmth. He did not like the Black Spear, but he liked extinction less. The Dominion tried to clamp the news. It blocked markets, jammed pirate boards, and arrested street rumor mongers. It did not matter. The sky itself carried the story, from old transmitters buried in rock, from relay rings lit for the first time in an age, from the mouth of a ship built to end wars. The message rolled like thunder. This is Captain Eric Grahn of the Terran warship Nemesis. To the Dominion that calls fear order. To the empires that call theft tax. To the rulers who stand on bones and call it peace, humanity remembers. We are not gone. We are not forgiving. Vacate the lanes you stole. Step away from the graves you filled. This is your warning. Some who heard it shivered. Some who heard it cheered. Some who heard it laughed until they realized they were not laughing. On a cluttered outpost in the EO's belt, a wine-eyed pirate named Rex leaned back and smiled. Old wolves, he said to the room. I'm tired of shepherds. On a quiet farm moon, the teacher played the message again. The children listened without moving. The smallest boy whispered, they sound like a storm. The Nemesis did. Not rush. It moved like a hunter who knows the herd will turn. Karu Station glittered ahead, a bright flower in an easy field. The station chief yawned through the night shift and told a joke about ghosts. The joke ended when every console went white. Unidentified contact. How many? 1. Laughter tried to rise and died. Contact dropped out of the relay like a falling wall. Guns that had not fired in centuries fired without missing. A cruiser split open like a fruit. The station's shield grid lit once, twice, and went to black. Then the missiles came, not elegant, not exotic, just hungry. Fuel domes went first. Docking pylons next. Barracks after that. The station died in 3 minutes. Fast enough that those who died did not have time to decide how to feel about it. Every channel inside 10 light minutes filled with a voice. No gloating, no music. Just the report of a judge who had brought a hammer. Humanity remembers. The Nemesis did not wait for an answer. It turned, slid into the relay's mouth, and was gone. The Dominion heard the echo. So did the poor. So did the thieves. So did the dead. Commander Darnik Val watched the reports arrive at Sector Command like falling knives. He stood while younger men sat, read while louder men yelled. He learned while prouder men promised to win because they wanted to. Karus is gone, an analyst said, voice small. How long? Darnik asked. 3 minutes, survivors. The analyst shook his head. Darnik closed his eyes. He saw the Nemesis's cold bow and the glow that had swallowed a station. Did not mistake cruelty for clarity. This had not been murder for pleasure. It had been war done by a people who had learned the cost and were willing to pay it again. The Supreme Archon's voice came from behind him. They want fear. They want time, Darnik said. Fear is how they buy it. The Archon nodded. Once, then we give them a debt they cannot afford. He turned to the assembled staff. Deploy 2nd Fleet, deploy 5th, deploy Black Spear. I want relay patrols doubled. I want civilian routes restricted. I want the grid choked. Admiral swallowed. Sire, the grid belongs to them, and we burn it, the Archon said. If a relay will not serve us, it will serve no one. Darnik's mouth twitched. They expect this, and surprise them by doing it faster. The Nemesis drifted in a dark sector where stars were thin and dust made faint rivers. Inside, the crew ate in silence and checked each other's hands. For tremor, no one trembled. They had slept long enough to forget how Brand Holt stood beside Eric and kept his voice low. We made noise. We made purpose, Eric said. Rhea lifted her head from the Cums pool. We also made friends. 3 pirate bands offer routes. 2 rebel worlds offer fuel. 1 old colony sent a song. I think it's a code. Decode the music, Eric said. His mouth almost smiled. Humans would hide a key inside a hymn. The AI spoke again. Long-range scan detects Dominion mass movement. Sectors converging on relay junctions. Black signatures indicate special operations. Black Spear, Brand muttered. Eric's eyes cooled. Good warriors who know pain are less likely to make stupid mistakes. Prep decoys. Scatter mines in fields where they will think we hide. Then don't be there. Where will we be? Brand asked. Eric pointed to a dim segment of the grid, a place where 3 rings met like knuckles. Where we wake the next ship. Rhea's fingers stilled. Vindicator? No, Eric said softly. Old grief moved through his tone and did not slow his words. Revenant Brand looked at him. You know her, Captain? I knew her promise, Eric said. Promises live longer than people. The relay knuckle loomed ahead 3 rings. Dead and dark, fused to rock like fossil bones. The Nemesis slowed. Drones drifted out like dandelion seeds. Their tiny lights touched the rings and made them remember. Old coils warmed. Old capacitors sighed. Symbols in old Earth script crawled along cold plates and told them they were still themselves. Rhea watched numbers rise. Power at 20%. 40, 60. They're waking. Brand kept his eyes on the dark behind the ship. Dominion strike groups vectoring in. Fast. Black Spear patterns. They think they can box us. Let them think, Eric said. He stepped forward until the stars filled his pupils. Begin reanimation signal. Target. Revenant bunker. The AI's voice lowered as if it, too, felt ceremony. A signal sent. Somewhere under rock and ice, in a vault that had not heard speech since the stars were young, a switch flipped itself toward morning. Frost cracked like thin glass. A light turned green. On the Nemesis bridge, a soft tone chimed Rhea's voice. Broke with relief and awe. Reply received. Revenant is waking. Brand exhaled a laugh that sounded like a battle cry held in the mouth. Here we go. Alarms flared. The tactical board filled with teeth. The Black Spear fleet burned out of the dark. Arrowheads first. Engines hard. Darnik Val stood on the Dreadclaw's bridge and saw the Nemesis hanging before 3 rings that glowed like halos. He did not smile. He did not hate. He only understood that the next minute would set the shape of the war. Box them, he ordered. No speeches. On Nemesis, Eric Gron never looked away from the rings. Hold, he said, as black spear ships sharpened their circles. Hold, he said, as mines flashed awake in rock shrapnel. Hold, he said, as the relay coils screamed. Themselves into life. The rings blazed. Space bent. A shadow larger than fear moved behind the rock. A new silhouette pushed free of the grave. Ria's whisper was a prayer and a weapon both. Revenant. Karus Station was never meant to be a battlefield. For 300 years, it had been a logistics hub, a quiet waypoint in the Dominion's endless machine of control. It's a cluster of metal towers orbiting a pale orange sun. Its job was simple. Refuel the fleets, store supplies, repair the patrol craft that moved between frontier sectors. Its officers were not warriors. Its crews were not fighters. They were mechanics, clerks, and station guards who carried rifles mostly for ceremony. Commander of Karis, Overseer Vec, believed in routine. Every morning he walked the same path from his quarters to the central ring. Every morning he checked the same reports, signed the same transfers, heard the same dull voices. To him, war was far away, in sectors where people were foolish enough. To resist the Dominion, Karos was safe. Karos was secure. Until the alarm screamed. It began with a tremor on the long-range scanners. A blip. Small, strange, dismissed by junior officers as a glitch. But the blip grew. It sharpened, it gained weight. By the time they realized what it was too late. Unidentified contact, the sensor chief stammered. How many? Overseer Vec asked, annoyed at being dragged from his breakfast. 1, sir, 1, he laughed. Then why are the alarms screaming? The sensor chief swallowed, because of its size. The projection appeared on the holotable, shadows, edges, brutal lines. A ship so massive it seemed to bend. The light around it. The officers leaned closer, eyes wide. They did not recognize the design. It was no Dominion craft, no alien merchant vessel. It was older, darker, CRUELER, and along its side, faint letters glowed in ancient human script. SSV Nemesis. The laughter died in Overseer Vec's throat. The Nemesis did not announce itself with words. It announced itself with fire. A rail round tore from its bow, glowing white with speed. It crossed the distance in seconds. The first Dominion cruiser stationed near Karos barely had time to raise shields before the shot ripped through its hull. The ship split apart like paper, fire, and air venting into the void. Panic filled the comms. Unknown hostile shields failing, evacuate the lower docks. Overseer Vex stood frozen. His world of routine had shattered in one shot. He whispered the word he had been told was only a myth. Human. The Nemesis moved again, calm, precise. Its missiles streaked across space like black arrows, weaving through desperate defensive. Fire. They struck the fuel domes. The explosion lit the sector like a second sun. Flames billowed out, debris scattering across orbit. Karus Station shook as shockwaves rippled through its hull. Men and women screamed. Sirens wailed. Systems failed. In 3 minutes, the station that had stood for centuries was burning. Captain Eric Gran watched the destruction with eyes like cold steel. He did not flinch at the fire. He did not smile. He only nodded once, as if a judgment had been passed. Tactical. Report, he said. 2 cruisers down, Brandholt answered, his scarred face grim with satisfaction. Station shields collapsing. Fuel reserves gone. They won't recover. Casualties on our side? None. Eric clasped his hands behind his back. Good, Send the message. Riacade's fingers danced across the comp's console. Her voice carried out, cold and sharp, across every channel. This is Captain Eric Gran of the human warship Nemesis. The Dominion rules by fear. Humanity remembers. We are coming. The words repeated again and again, bouncing through relay channels, picked up by smugglers, rebels, pirates, and Dominion garrisons. Across the galaxy, the silence of 20,000 years was broken. Kairos Station's defenders tried to fight. Patrol craft launched, firing weak volleys of plasma. The Nemesis answered with rail fire that tore through them like toys. Station cannons rotated, firing frantic bursts. Missiles swatted them down. The Nemesis moved with terrible grace, ancient, but precise. In the control room, Overseer Vex shouted orders that no one could follow. The station's systems were burning. The generators were collapsing. His crew was dying. He realized with a sick twist in his stomach that they were not soldiers, they were targets, and the humans were not pirates. They were executioners. A final missile struck the station's main reactor. The explosion ripped through its core. Towers collapsed, lights died. Kato Station burned in silence, a graveyard glowing in the dark. The Nemesis turned away engines, bright, leaving wreckage behind. News of Kairos reached Dominion Command within hours. No one knew how because official channels had been destroyed. But whispers flew faster than couriers. By the time the report reached the Supreme Archon, half the Outer Rim already knew. Kairos is gone, an officer whispered in the war chamber. How long did it last? An admiral asked. 3 minutes, said the officer. The officer lowered his head. None. The chamber filled with outrage. Admirals shouted for vengeance. Priests demanded purges. Generals swore oaths of annihilation. But the Archon sat still. His eyes burned with cold fury. They want us afraid, he said softly. They want us panicked. He turned to the officers. But we will not give them fear. We will give them war. His voice cut through the noise. Deploy the 2nd Fleet, deploy the 5th, and summon the Black Spear. The chamber went silent. The Black Spear fleet had not been deployed in centuries. They were the Dominion's knife in the dark, its most ruthless warriors. If they were called, it meant desperation. The Archon's eyes narrowed. We burn the old relays. We choke the grid. And we hunt them until there is nothing left. Talrith had escaped to Sector Command, but its crew had no rest. Commander Darnik Val stood before the Council of Admirals, battered and sleepless, describing what he had seen. They are not myths, he said. I saw the Nemesis with my own eyes. Their weapons are old but deadly. Their hull alloys resist every scan. They fight like predators. And Kairos proves they strike without hesitation. An admiral sneered. It was one ship. One, the Dominion. Has 10,000. Darnik met his eyes. One ship destroyed Kairos in 3 minutes. How many will it take to burn a sector? The room fell silent. The Supreme Archon raised a hand. You will join the Black Spear fleet, Commander. You know their mind better than anyone. You will help us trap them. Darnik saluted, though his gut twisted. He knew what it meant. The Dominion was not ready. But orders were orders. In the pirate enclaves of the Eos Belt, smugglers laughed with greed. In 3 minutes they broke Kairos, Captain Rex said, his single eye gleaming. Imagine what else they can do. Maybe the Dominion bleeds after all. Rebel colonies, hope flared like fire. They're back, whispered a farmer staring at the night sky. The humans are back. In forgotten outposts, ancient codes woke. Lights flickered in bunkers buried under ice. Cryopods stirred. More human ships began to reawaken. The sleeper fleet was rising. In the war room, Eric Gran studied the star. Map red markers glowed where Dominion fleets massed. Blue lines stretched across the relay grid, pathways opening to forgotten strongholds. Brandholt leaned over the table. They'll send everything now. Fleets, hunters, assassins. They'll burn worlds to stop us. Eric's eyes hardened. Let them. They'll overextend, Brand said with a sharp grin. And when they do, Eric replied coldly, we bleed them dry. Around him, the crew moved with grim purpose. These were not men and women of peace. They were soldiers from humanity's last war, warriors who had slept through the death of their world. And now they were awake, the Nemesises. Engines flared. The relay grid pulsed with light, opening new pathways into Dominion space. Rhea Cade's voice cut through the bridge. Captain, new signals. Multiple ships answering our code. Hammerfall, Vindicator, Revenant. They're waking. Eric's lips curved into a thin smile. Good. Let the galaxy know. Humanity does not return alone. The Nemesis vanished into the relay, leaving only fire and wreckage behind. Karu Station was gone. The Dominion's silence was broken. And the war had only just begun. The Dominion's second fleet cut through the stars like a silver blade, 30 warships strong. 10 battleships, 20 cruisers, and a swarm of escorts and support craft. It was the largest mobilization the outer sectors had seen in a century. To the Dominion, it was a hammer meant to crush a ghost. At the head of the fleet stood Commander Darnik Val, his eyes locked on the tactical display of his flagship. His face was drawn, sleepless, but hard with purpose. He had seen the Nemesis once. He knew what it could do. And he knew pride had already cost too many lives. Status, he barked. All ships in formation, his first officer replied. No stragglers. Orders are being followed to the letter. And the target. Nemesis last seen vectoring towards Sector 12. Supply lanes. Weak targets. Darnik stared at the map. Not weak. Bait. The officer shifted nervously. Sir? They want us to chase them, Darnik said. His voice was a growl. But we will not break formation. Tight. No one drifts. That ship feeds on mistakes. The officer nodded, but his hands trembled. Everyone in the fleet had heard the stories by now. Kara's gone in 3 minutes. Patrols wiped out in seconds. They were sailing into the jaws of a myth, and ahead of them lay the asteroid graveyard. A vast field of broken rock and ancient wreckage. A place of shadows and silence, the perfect place for an ambush. The asteroid graveyard stretched for millions of kilometers, a belt of shattered worlds and rusting hulks from wars long past. Jagged rocks spun in the void, colliding with one another in slow violence. Old wreckage drifted between them, burned out. Stations, crushed warships, silent bones of battles no one remembered. The Dominion fleet slowed as they approached. Scanners? Darnik asked. The sensor chief shook his head. Asteroid interference. Reading scattered, sir. I can't locate anything inside. They're here, Darnik said flatly. They want us to come in. They want us divided. His first officer licked his lips. Orders. Darnik's jaw clenched. He had no choice. Advance, maintain squadron cohesion. Weapons free. The fleet surged forward into the graveyard. Lines tight, shields raised. Asteroids scraped their shields. Fragments pinged against hulls. Ships moved like predators entering a dark forest, watchful. Tense, waiting for the snap of a twig. The snap came faster than anyone expected. A Dominion destroyer on the left. Flank strayed too close to a jagged cluster of rock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rock exploded. The destroyer vanished in a blinding flash as a hidden mine detonated. Tearing through its shields and ripping its hull in half, debris spun out, scattering into the formation. Ambush. Its voices screamed over the comms. Contact multiple points. Rail rounds lanced out of the dark. Silent, precise. They punched clean through the armor of 3 cruisers. Tearing them apart before their crews had time to react, the fleet erupted into chaos. Ships turned wildly, shields raised in all directions. Orders clashed over COMMs, and in the shadows, the Nemesis moved. It slid between asteroids like a predator through tall grass. Its guns fired with deadly rhythm. 1 volley, 1 kill. A cruiser exploded in a storm of fire. Battleship staggered. Bleeding atmosphere. On board the Dominion flagship, The bridge shook with the force of nearby detonations. Enemy fire. Multiple vectors. Form up. Reform the line. Darnik roared. But the asteroid field made formation impossible. Every squadron broke apart. Sightlines vanished. Communication faltered. Ships drifted alone, blind and afraid. And the Nemesis hunted them one by one. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Eric Grahn stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were calm, cold. He had seen this before. Battles where numbers meant nothing. Battles where chaos was. A weapon. Maintain shadow maneuvers, he ordered. Pick them off slowly. Bleed them. Brandholt grinned like a wolf. They're panicking already. Indeed they were. Dominion comes filled with frantic voices. Ships screamed for support. Officers begged for orders. Some tried to regroup. Others fled deeper into the rocks. Each one was a mistake. Each mistake was punished. Rail rounds tore through another cruiser. Squadron of escorts tried to corner the Nemesis, but drones swarmed them, decoys scattering their fire. Then the Nemesis emerged from behind an asteroid, rail cannons blazing. In seconds, the escorts were dust. Eric's voice was steady. Good, push harder. Missiles streaked out, weaving between rocks. They found a battleship's weak point and detonated its engine core. The explosion tore half the ship apart, sending the rest drifting helplessly into the void. On the tactical display, Dominion icons winked out one after another. Ambush was working. Commander Darnik Val fought to regain control of the chaos. His voice thundered across. Comes, group your squadrons. Don't chase ghosts. Force them to show themselves. But even as he shouted, another of his cruisers detonated. The Nemesis was everywhere and nowhere, striking and vanishing before counterfire could touch it. Darnik slammed a fist on his chair. Damn them. His first officer looked at him with fear. Sir, we're losing too many. We must withdraw. Not yet, Darnik growled. His pride would not let him retreat, not after Karus, not after the whispers. But the truth gnawed at him. This was no ordinary foe. This was not pirates or rebels. This was war, as only humans knew. It brutal, precise, merciless. For the first time in years, Darnik felt the sharp edge of fear. On board the Nemesis, Eric Grahn studied the battle feeds. His eyes narrowed. He saw the Dominion weakening. Their lines shattered, their voices fractured. This was the moment. Now, he said. Strike hard. Drive them out. All weapons fired in unison. Rail rounds cut through a battleship's core. Missiles shredded two more cruisers. The Nemesis surged forward, its engines burning bright, moving like a wolf among scattered sheep. Dominion ships broke. Some tried to regroup. Some fled. Others fired wildly into the dark, hitting nothing but rock. On Darnik's flagship, the bridge, shook as another blast rocked the hull. Shields failing. Can't take another hit. The XO grabbed Darnik's arm. Commander, we must withdraw now. Darnik's pride cracked under the weight of reality. His fleet was dying. He had no choice. All ships, he growled, his voice bitter with defeat. Retreat. Jump now. The Dominion fleet limped away, engines burning, hulls scarred and broken. 15 ships gone, the rest damaged, scattered, humiliated, and behind them the Nemesis watched, silent, victorious. On its bridge, Eric asked, Casualties? Brandholt grinned. Minimal. No critical damage. Eric nodded. His eyes were cold as ice. This is only the beginning. Prepare for the next strike. We remind them what humanity is. News of the battle spread faster than any official report. Rebel worlds' cheers erupted. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion had been bloodied. On pirate stations, captains swore loyalty not to the Dominion, but to the humans who could burn fleets. Distant colonies, whispers grew louder. The humans were not myths. They were real. And they had returned in the Dominion's core. Fear seeped through the cracks of control. Citizens whispered in the markets. Soldiers muttered in the barracks. Admirals argued in the war chambers, and in the Supreme Archon's throne room, silence reigned. The Archon sat rigid, his hands clenched, his eyes burning with fury. "They bleed us," he said softly. "One ship does this. One." His gaze swept the room. "They want us afraid. We will not fear. We will not wait. We adapt. We hunt. We burn every relay, every ruin, every shadow they crawl from." He turned to Darnik, who stood battered but alive before him. "You faced them twice. You know their mind. You will lead again. This time, no mistakes." Darnik bowed, though his eyes were heavy with doubt. "Yes, Supreme One." Far away, in a hidden sector, the Nemesis hung silent among the stars. Its crew gathered in the war room, eyes fixed on the relay grid map. More lights flickered alive. More signals answered. Riacade whispered, "Captain." Hammerfall reports full revival. Vindicator close behind. Revenant awakening. Eric Gron's gaze hardened. "Good. The fleet grows." He looked at the map, at the Dominion heart glowing red in the center. His voice was ice. "They think one ship terrifies them. Let them see what happens when the dead rise together." Nemesis's engines flared, preparing to jump. The Dominion had been humiliated. Cairo Station burned in 3 minutes. The Second Fleet lost half its strength in the asteroid graveyard. Whispers of fear spread faster than orders of silence. But the Supreme Archon was not a man who bowed to fear. He was a man who sharpened it into a weapon. And so, in a chamber beneath the Dominion's core citadel, he gave a command that had not been spoken in centuries: "Unseal the Black Spear Fleet." The room fell still. Admirals shifted uncomfortably. Even hardened generals lowered their voices. The Black Spear were not ordinary soldiers. They were killers chosen for loyalty, cruelty, and skill. They were the Dominion's shadow knife, called upon only when survival itself was at stake. One by one, their ships slid from hidden docks, dark holes, angled like blades, painted in black, so deep they drank starlight. Their captains wore no bright uniforms. Only armor scarred from wars most of the Dominion pretended had never happened. At their head stood the Dreadclaw, a massive warship armed with prototype cannons and elite strike wings. Its commander, none other than Darnik Val, pulled from shame into command once more. On the Dreadclaw's bridge, Darnik stared at the holographic map of the relay grid. "The humans think the grid belongs to them," he said quietly. "We will prove them wrong." His officers waited. Darnik's voice hardened. "They will awaken more ships. They will use the relays to spread faster than we can chase. So we don't chase. We cut, we bait, we trap, and we kill." Around him, the Black Spear captains gave one answer in unison: "Glory to the Dominion." The Nemesis drifted in a hidden sector, far from Dominion eyes. Its crew gathered in the war room, faces lit by the glow of the relay grid map. More lights flickered alive across the board signals from ancient human ships waking in the dark. Riacade, the comms officer, leaned forward. "Captain Hammerfall and Vindicator report full power. Revenant is waking. More signals from the Rim Warhound, ironclad. The fleet is growing." Gron stood silent, hands clasped behind his back. His face was gaunt, his eyes cold. For him, the 20,000 years of sleep had been an instant. But the rage of humanity's fall burned as if it were yesterday. "They will come harder now," Brandholt said, his scar catching the light. "They'll send their best, the Black Spear. If the whispers are true," Eric's lip curled faintly. "Good. Better to bleed wolves than sheep." The AI spoke, its voice calm and deep. Dominion chatter indicates rapid redeployment. Strike groups converging near relay junctions. Unnatural speed, probability, elite force. Eric's eyes narrowed. "They want to trap us." Brand grinned like a predator. "Then let's spring their trap on our terms." In Dominion space, Darnik Val addressed the Black Spear captains aboard the Dreadclaw. "The humans will not fight fair," he said. "They strike where we are weak. They cut supply lines. They vanish before we can respond. But they are few. Their strength lies in shadow. We force them into the open, and they break." A captain with a scarred helmet leaned forward. "And how do we drag shadows into light?" Darnik pointed at the map. A relay junction flickered in red. Here, this sector. The humans will try to awaken more of their kind. We bait them with false signals, let them believe their brothers sleep here. When they come, we close the jaws. The captains nodded. The trap was set. The Nemesis approached the chosen relay sector cautiously. The field was quiet, too quiet. 3 massive rings hung in the void, dark and silent. To most, they looked dead. To Eric, they looked like promise. Relay junction. Ahead, Rhea reported. Brand's eyes narrowed. It smells wrong. Eric's voice was calm. It is wrong. But we'll use it. He turned to his crew. Deploy decoys. Scatter drones. Make them see us where we are not. Sleek black drones shot from the Nemesis, vanishing into the void. Their signals mimicked the Nemesis's own signature, echoing through the rocks. Moments later, the Dominion arrived. Dozens of black spear ships burst from hyperspace, forming a killing circle. Their dark hulls gleamed with cruel purpose. At their center, the Dreadclaw led with its cannons glowing. On its bridge, Darnik Val gave the order, close the net, begin the kill. But what the Dominion thought was the Nemesis was only light and shadow. The real Nemesis had already moved. The Nemesis jumped with surgical precision. In a flash of distorted space, it emerged not at the edge of the trap, but at its center, directly inside the relay junction's perimeter. The Dominion fleet scrambled, caught off guard. Enemy ship inside the ring. It's impossible. Protect the relay. Eric's voice was ice. Target the control station. Fire. Rail cannons roared. Missiles streaked. The Dominion relay control shuddered, then collapsed in a storm of fire. The trap broke in an instant. On board the Dreadclaw, alarms screamed. Officers shouted, relay offline, net collapsing. Darnik slammed his fist into his chair. Damn them, they outplayed us again. He snarled at his crew. All ships. Close on the Nemesis. Do not let it escape. The Black Spear fleet swarmed, fast and ruthless. Their cannons fired in disciplined volleys, tearing through the asteroids around the Nemesis. Fighters swarmed like angry insects, darting at its flanks. On the Nemesis bridge, Rhea shouted, multiple hostiles closing fast. Brandholt's grin widened. Finally, a real fight. Eric's voice cut through the noise. Deploy mines. Decoys. Split them. Explosions rippled through the field as hidden mines detonated, shredding Black Spear escorts. Decoys darted. Away, dragging Dominion ships off course. The Nemesis itself danced between rocks, its ancient engines flaring with terrifying power. Rail rounds tore through one Black Spear cruiser. Missiles crippled another, but the Black Spear fought back. Their formations were tight, their strikes precise. For every ship Nemesis wounded, another pressed closer. The Dreadclaw fired its prototype cannon. The blast rocked the Nemesis shields, flickering dangerously. For the first time, Eric's crew staggered. Damage report, Eric barked. Shields at 40%, Maradev replied, her face pale, whole integrity holding. Eric's voice was steady. We don't win this head-on. We buy time. The others must wake. As the battle raged, the Nemesis broadcast its signal. Into the void, ancient codes, ancient calls, across the sector, hidden bunkers stirred. Deep beneath rock and ice, cryopods hissed. Reactors flickered to life. Rhea's voice trembled. Captain's signal reply from Revenant bunker. There. Waking? Eric's eyes hardened. Good, hold the line. The Nemesis shuddered under another volley. Systems strained. Crew shouted. The Black Spear pressed harder, closing the jaws. On the Dreadclaw, Darnik's eyes burned. They can't hold much longer. Push them. Break them. But just as the Nemesis seemed cornered, the relay rings lit with blinding energy. Space rippled. A new silhouette emerged. Larger than a cruiser, darker than the void. Its bow gleamed with the name half hidden by frost and scars. SSV Revenant. On the Nemesis. Bridge, relief swept the crew. Rhea whispered, they made it. Brandholt's grin was fierce. Now the fight begins. Eric Grand's eyes were steel. He raised his voice so all could hear. "Signal Revenant. Weapons online. Let the Dominion know the dead do not sleep." Forever. The Nemesis and Revenant turned together, guns blazing, side by side, and for the first time, the Black Spear fleet hesitated. The void trembled with fire. The Nemesis was burning. Its hull glowed with fresh scars. Shields flickered under the relentless assault of the Black Spear fleet. For a moment, even Eric Gron had wondered if the galaxy's silence would return so soon, and then the Revenant rose from the dark. She came through the relay like a storm breaking through clouds, her bow scarred with frost, her engines roaring to life after 20,000 years of sleep. Massive rail cannons extended from her flanks and along her hull. Ancient letters glowed faint but clear, SSV Revenant. The Dominion strike groups faltered. Their formations wavered. For the first time in the battle, the hunters hesitated. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Brandholt grinned, blood on his cheek from a console blast. "There she is, the Revenant." Eric Gron's voice was cold iron. "Signal them. Weapons online." The galaxy thought one ship was fear enough. Now it will see. 2. On the Revenant's bridge, frost still clung to the walls. Cryopods hissed as crew staggered out, coughing, shaking, their eyes adjusting to light after an eternity of frozen dreams. At the command chair stood Captain Lena Corey, gaunt but unbroken. She wiped frost from her face, her jaw set with steel. Her eyes swept her bridge crew, who were barely awake, but already moving with trained precision. "Status," she rasped. "Reactor output stable, weapons charging. Shields cold but climbing, enemy contacts. Multiple Dominion fleet closing on Nemesis. Nemesis damage heavy." Lena's lips tightened. She had fought in humanity's last wars. She had seen Earth burn. She had sworn her ship would never fall silent. And now, 20,000 years later, she was alive again. "Then let's remind them what humanity does," she said. "Bring guns to full charge. Target their flagship." Nemesis and the Revenant moved as one. Two titans of ancient war, side by side, their cannons blazing, rail rounds punched through Black Spear cruisers, tearing them apart. Missiles streaked out in waves, weaving through the Dominion's tight formations and shattering ships in bursts of fire. On board the Dreadclaw, Darnik Val staggered as the deck shook under a near miss. His officers shouted over the chaos. "Sir, we're losing formation. 2 cruisers destroyed. Shields failing across the line." Darnik gritted his teeth. He had expected to fight 1 human ghost, not 2. And he knew, with a sick twist in his gut, that more would follow. "Hold the line," he roared. "Push them back. We are the Black Spear. We do not retreat." But his voice could not hide the fear spreading through his crew. On the Nemesis bridge, Eric gave orders with steady calm. "Target their heavy ships, break their backbone." The Nemesis fired again, its rail cannons glowing white-hot. A Dominion battleship exploded in a cloud of molten fragments. The Revenant followed with a devastating broadside, missiles slamming into a cruiser squadron and tearing it apart in seconds. Brandholt laughed like a wolf. "Look at them run. For the first time in their lives, they're afraid." Eyes stayed cold. "They're not broken yet. Keep pressing." The Revenant surged forward, its guns tearing into the Dominion flagship's escorts. Captain Lena Corey stood tall on her bridge, her voice sharp as a blade. "Forward batteries. Fire. All wings launch." From her hangars, sleek human strike craft poured out, ancient fighters restored by awakening systems. They streaked across the battlefield, harassing Dominion gunships. Weaving through enemy fire with impossible maneuvers, the Dominion had never seen human pilots before. They would not forget them now. On the Dreadclaw, Darnik Val's pride clashed with reality. His fleet was bleeding. The humans were not raiders. They were a storm. An officer shouted, "Sir, we must withdraw." "No," Darnik snapped. "If we retreat again, the Archon will see only failure. We fight here. We end it here." His eyes locked on the Nemesis, still burning, still alive. Focus all fire on the Nemesis. Ignore the Revenant. Break the first wolf before the pack grows. The black spear ships obeyed. Cannons roared. Fighters swarmed. Missiles streaked toward the Nemesis in a storm of fire. On Nemesis's bridge, alarms screamed. Shields down to 20%. Breaches on decks 12 and 14. Missile Bay 3 destroyed. Eric's grip tightened on the console. We hold. If they want us, they'll pay in blood. The Nemesis staggered under the assault. Hull plates split. Fires raged in corridors. Crew fought to keep systems alive, dragging the ship through hell with sheer determination. Then, a blast from the Dreadclaw's prototype cannon struck. The Nemesis shook violently. Consoles exploded. Brandholt was thrown across the deck, blood streaming down his arm. "Captain," Mara Dev shouted. "Critical damage to port reactor. We can't take another hit like that." For the first time, silence touched the Nemesis bridge. For the first time, the myth looked fragile, and then the Revenant roared. Captain Lena Corey's voice cut through the comms, fierce and unyielding. "Nemesis, hold fast. We've got your flank." The Revenant surged into the line of fire, her shields blazing as she absorbed the Dominion barrage. Her cannons thundered, striking the Dreadclaw broadside. The Dominion flagship shuddered, its shields flickering. On board the Dreadclaw, Darnick gripped the arms of his chair, teeth bared. So be it. They want war then. War is what they'll have. The Revenant's guns cut deep into the Dreadclaw, tearing through armor, breaching compartments, sending Dominion crews screaming into the void. But the Black Spear fleet did not break. They tightened their circle, closing in on both human ships. Riacade's voice rose in panic. "Captain, they're trying to box us. They'll cut off our escape." Eric's eyes stayed hard. Then, we don't escape. Brand, bruised and bleeding, grinned through pain. About time. The Nemesis and Revenant moved back to back, their guns blazing in every direction. Together, they tore through Dominion ships, but the swarm was endless. For every cruiser destroyed, another pressed in. It was not victory. It was survival. And survival would not last forever. Far from the battle, in hidden sectors, more Terran signals stirred. The broadcast of Nemesis and Revenant's stand reached ancient bunkers. More ships began to wake. Cryopods hissed. Reactors rumbled. On a frozen moon, the SSV Hammerfall came online, its captain whispering to his crew, "The war has begun."
Oh.
On a shattered asteroid, the SSV Blade shook off dust, its systems purring to life. Across the rim, lights flickered in long dead. Relays. The galaxy was listening. The humans were rising. Back in the battle, the Nemesis and Revenant fought like wolves surrounded by fire. The Black Spear circled closer, their weapons tearing chunks from the human dreadnoughts. On Nemesis, alarms blared. Reactor critical. Hull breach spreading. On Revenant, officers shouted, shields collapsing, enemy fighters inbound. Eric Grand's face was steel. Lena Corey's eyes were fire. Both captains knew the truth. This was not the final battle. But it could be the end if they failed here. The relay behind them pulsed. More signals stirred. They were not yet here. Brandholt staggered back to his post, bloody but grinning. "Captain, we can't hold forever." Eric's reply was, "Ice. Then we hold long enough." On the Dreadclaw, Darnick Val rose from his chair, eyes blazing. "Finish them." The Black Spear closed in, cannons blazing, and just as the Nemesis's shields collapsed, a new signal blared across the comms louder. Then fire, stronger than fear. This is the SSV Hammerfall. Humanity fights. Humanity remembers. Brace brothers were here. A third Terran dreadnought tore through the relay, guns already firing. The void burned. The Nemesis was breaking. Its shields were gone, its hull torn, fires raging in every way. Corridor. The Revenant stood beside it, battered but still blazing, her crew fighting with the fury of the newly awakened. And all around them, the Black Spear fleet closed in, tightening their circle, ready to finish what they had begun. Commander Darnick Val watched from the bridge of the Dreadclaw. his voice sharp as a knife. Hold the circle, they're finished. Humanity dies again today. But then the relay behind the Nemesis lit like a star. A new silhouette emerged. Massive, scarred, armed to the teeth. Its name burned on its bow. SSV Hammerfall. Its guns fired the moment it arrived, rail rounds smashing through Dominion cruisers before they could adjust. Missiles streaked in waves, tearing escorts apart. The battlefield shifted in seconds. On the Nemesis bridge, Brandholt laughed through blood. "Ha! I told you. The wolves are waking." Eric Gron's voice was steady. "Signal, Hammerfall. Form the line." The humans were no longer alone. The Hammerfall's captain, Marcus Riker, stood tall on his bridge. His beard was thick with frost, his eyes sharp with rage. He had been frozen for 20,000 years, but his voice carried the weight of war. "Target." "Their flagship," he ordered. "Make them bleed." Hammerfall's guns roared, striking the Dreadclaw broadside. Alarm screaming, slack ship shook. Alarm screaming. On its bridge, Darnick's officers looked at him with fear. "Sir, a third one? Another human dreadnought?" Darnick's jaw clenched. "Then we kill 3 instead of 2. Push them harder." But his voice no longer carried the same conviction. Nemesis. Revenant and Hammerfall moved together, side by side, their guns blazing in synchronized fury. They fired in volleys, each round precise, each missile a spear. Dominion ships that had circled like hunters now found themselves prey. A black spear cruiser exploded under a combined salvo. A battleship staggered, its shields collapsing, its hull torn apart by missiles. Fighter squadrons swarmed, but human strike craft rose from Revenant's bays, slicing through them with brutal efficiency. On Nemesis, Eric's voice cut through the noise. "Target their supply ships. Leave their warships hungry." Rail rounds ripped through Dominion fuel carriers, detonating them in blinding fire. The Black Spear fleet's endurance began to collapse. On Revenant, Captain Lena Corey's voice was steel. Forward batteries fire at will, break their line. Her cannons thundered, punching a hole in the Dominion circle. The humans surged forward, tearing through the gap. The battle had turned. On the Dreadclaw, Darnick Val slammed his fist into the arm of his chair. "Damn them. They multiply like shadows." His first officer's voice trembled. "Sir, our losses are unsustainable. We must fall back." Darnick's eyes blazed. "No retreat. If we retreat again, the Archon will have my head. We'll hold here, even if it costs us everything." The Black Spear ships obeyed, tightening their ranks, firing in disciplined volleys. Their cannons struck the Hammerfall hard, tearing chunks from its hull. Fighters swarmed the Revenant, clawing at its shields. Missiles hammered the Nemesis, sending fires raging through its decks. The battle was far from won. On Hammerfall, Captain Riker stood firm. "We didn't wait to die quietly," he growled. "Bring the broadside online. Give them everything." Hammerfall turned, unleashing a devastating wave of fire. Its rail cannons fired in a rolling barrage, each shot slamming into Dominion warships. Missiles followed, detonating across the enemy line. 2 Black Spear cruisers vanished in flames. Eric Gron's voice echoed across the fleet channel. "Hold the line. Strike together. They think numbers win wars. Show them why humanity survived when others fell." The 3 dreadnoughts fought, like wolves in formation, tearing the Black Spear apart piece by piece. For every blow they took, they gave 2 back. The Dominion had never seen anything like it. The battle's broadcast spread. The humans had not intended it, but the relay grid carried signals farther than anyone expected. On rebel worlds, people wept as they saw Dominion ships burning. On pirate stations, captains swore fealty to the Terran cause. Forgotten colonies. Old flags were raised. The myth was no longer rumor. The myth was real. Humanity was awake, and the galaxy trembled. The battle raged for hours. Dominion ships fell one by one, their circle breaking under the relentless human assault. On board the Dreadclaw, Darnick Val's officers begged.
"Ow, sir."
Half the fleet destroyed. Shields collapsing. "We can't hold." Darnick's face was pale, his pride bleeding with every report. He stared at the holomap. 3 human ships, only 3, had broken the Black Spear fleet. His voice was bitter. Order retreat. Sound the fallback. The Dominion ships limped away, burning, broken. The Black Spear, the pride of the Dominion, had been shattered. The humans had won. In the silence after the battle, the 3 dreadnoughts floated among wreckage. Fires still burned on their hulls. Crews still fought to repair systems, but they were alive. On Nemesis, Eric Gron stood tall. His voice carried across the fleet channel. This is only the beginning. Today we showed them fear. Tomorrow we show them war. On Revenant, Lena Corey's eyes were fierce. They thought we were ghosts. Let them see what ghosts can do. On Hammerfall, Marcus Riker bared his teeth. They'll come with everything they have, and will. Take it from them. The fleet was small. Only 3 dreadnoughts, damaged and scarred. But across the relay grid, more signals stirred, more ships waking. The sleeper fleet was rising. Far away in the Dominion's core citadel, the Supreme Archon listened to the reports. His face was carved from stone, his voice like ice. The Black Spear is broken, an admiral whispered. The humans are multiplying, another said. They spread fear faster than fire. The Archon stood. His eyes were cold. Then we give them fire. He turned to his council. Begin the purge protocols. Burn every world that whispers their name. No mercy, no hesitation. We will break the spirit of this galaxy before humanity can claim it. The council stared in silence. None dared to object, and in the dark of space, the sleeper fleet gathered. More ships woke with every passing day. Their captains, frozen for millennia, opened their eyes to war once more. On Nemesis, Eric Gron stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the stars. They forgot us, he said softly. But they will remember. It's the engines of 3 dreadnoughts. Flared, their light burning through the wreckage of battle. And somewhere, deep in the void, more Terran warships stirred, ready to rise. The silence of 20,000 years was over. The war for the galaxy had begun.